Beyond every word you speak, there is a silence that remembers where you came from. It is not empty, it breathes with presence. In that sacred quiet, the universe listens, and the soul begins to hear what the world cannot. Ibn Arabi said that when the heart becomes still enough, it transforms into an ear for the divine, a place where revelation is not spoken, but felt. Silence becomes the ocean in which every secret of creation dissolves. In that vastness, you realize that sound was only the shadow of meaning, and meaning was only the whisper of God. When you truly enter silence, you are not escaping life, you are stepping into its deepest truth, where the breath of the infinite moves through you, speaking without words. Before creation spoke its first word, there was stillness, vast, radiant, and aware. It was not emptiness, but fullness, holding within it the potential of every sound, every color, every form that would ever come to be. Ibn Arabi said that the universe was born, not from noise, but from a silence so complete that it overflowed. From that sacred quiet, existence emerged like breath from an unseen mouth, and all of life became an echo of that still beginning. Stillness is the mother of revelation. It is where divine intention rests before it takes shape. Every thought, every movement, every sound first bows to it, waiting for permission to exist. When the seeker enters true stillness, he steps into the same field that preceded creation, not a void, but an overflowing light that has not yet decided what to become. In that moment, he hears the universe forming within his own breath. The stillness where creation begins to speak is not found outside, but within. It lives behind the heartbeat, beneath the restless noise of thought. It cannot be reached by effort, for effort belongs to movement. It reveals itself when striving ceases, when the soul grows quiet enough to listen to what has always been there. This is the stillness of God's presence, hidden, constant, endless. When the heart becomes still, perception changes. The world no longer feels like something happening to you, but something unfolding through you. Every sound carries the memory of silence. Every sight shines with the reflection of the unseen. In that awareness, the seeker realizes that silence is not the absence of creation. It is its foundation, its first and final word. Ibn Arabi wrote that the divine never stops speaking, only our noise prevents us from hearing. In stillness, the speech of the real becomes audible again, not as sound, but as understanding. A knowing dawns that does not come from intellect, but from presence. The still heart becomes a sanctuary, where revelation whispers itself into form. To hear creation speak, one must listen beyond the ears. The ears perceive echoes. The heart perceives essence. The universe is filled with silent speech, the dialogue between being and non-being, between manifestation and rest. The one who has learned to listen inwardly can hear light move, can hear form taking shape, can hear existence reciting the name of its source. Stillness is not passive. It is the most active state of being. All creation moves because stillness sustains it. The planets turn upon its invisible axis, and even thought arises from its depth. To sit in stillness is not to withdraw from life, but to participate in its most sacred rhythm, the pulse of awareness breathing through form. Within the stillness, time dissolves. There is no before or after, no beginning or end. Everything happens at once, yet nothing disturbs the peace of the center. The mystic who abides here sees creation as a single, unfolding gesture, God's eternal act of self-revelation. To witness this is to see the world not as a place of chaos, but as harmony expanding infinitely. Every seeker must pass through the valley of silence before reaching understanding. Words may inspire, but only silence transforms. In that quiet, the false identities dissolve the thinker, the doer, the chaser. What remains is awareness untouched by motion, luminous and eternal. It is the same stillness that existed before the first star, and the same that waits after the last. The stillness where creation speaks cannot be contained by place. It moves through air and fire, through heart and stone. Every element carries its echo. The desert's wind, the mountain's calm, the ocean's pause between waves, all mirror this stillness in form. The wise see it everywhere, veiled only by the noise of those who forget to listen. To rest in this stillness is to touch the origin of all things. The seeker discovers that he was never separate from creation's source. He times the silence from which it arose. The voice he hears in meditation is not another's. It is the echo of his own eternal self, the part of him that never began and can never end. In that recognition, the universe becomes intimate. Creation itself longs to return to stillness. Every song ends in silence. Every storm fades into calm. Every life rests back into peace. This is the rhythm of return, woven into existence. Expansion and return. Sound and quiet. Form and formlessness. The heart that understands this moves gracefully through all change, knowing that stillness awaits behind every motion. When the mystic listens deeply enough, he begins to hear how silence gives shape to sound. Between two notes of a melody lies the secret of harmony. Between two breaths lives the secret of balance. In those sacred intervals, creation reveals its structure, the stillness between opposites, where unity hides. Stillness also heals. The soul that abides in it sheds layers of fragmentation. Thoughts slow, emotions soften, and clarity rises like dawn. It is not escape from life, but immersion into its source. From silence, wisdom flows naturally, not through learning, but through remembering what the heart already knows. The stillness, where creation begins to speak, is not distant or mystical alone. It is present in every ordinary moment. When you pause before speaking, when you breathe before acting, when you gaze quietly at the sky, that stillness touches you. The entire universe leans close then, waiting for you to notice that it is alive in the pause. Ibn Arabi said that the real is always speaking through creation, but we mistake the echo for the source. When you enter stillness, you hear the origin. You hear existence as a living prayer, whispering the divine name through every form. Even light is a word, even darkness a sentence. Every moment is scripture, unfolding from silence. In this awareness, the seeker no longer sees silence as empty. It is pregnant with presence, every vibration, every atom, every breath, carrying its signature. To rest here is to stand where God said, "Be," and to realize that He is still saying it now. The world is not a finished story, but a continuous recitation. The heart that lives in stillness speaks without words. Its very presence communicates peace. It becomes a doorway for others to feel what cannot be explained, the weightless gravity of the divine. Such a heart draws creation close, not by effort, but by resonance, by reflecting the quiet power of its source. Stillness becomes identity. The seeker no longer visits it. He becomes it. Speech arises through him without ownership. Actions flow through him without will. He is not the wave, but the calm beneath the wave. Not the echo, but the space that allows sound to exist. Through him, creation continues its conversation with the Creator. And so, the stillness where creation begins to speak is both the origin and the destination. It is the first word and the last silence, the breath that begins time and the peace that ends it. To enter it is to return home, to hear the soundless voice saying, "I was with you in every sound, and I remain with you in every silence." In that knowing, the soul rests not apart from creation, but as its eternal center. Before sound was born, there was music, a harmony too vast for the ear, woven into the fabric of existence itself. It is the resonance that holds all forms together, the secret rhythm through which the divine reveals himself. Ibn Arabi said that creation is God's breath turned into melody. Every atom vibrates with his remembrance. This is the hidden music of the unspoken word, the song that the soul recognizes, even when the mind cannot hear. The unspoken word is the root of all language. It is the intention before sound, the thought before vibration. When the divine willed to be known, that will become music, not noise, a symphony of being rising from the silence of love. Each thing that exists, from star to grain of sand, is a note in that endless song. To listen is to remember. To forget is to fall out of rhythm. This hidden music is not heard by ears, for it does not depend on sound. It vibrates through awareness itself. It moves in the breath, in the pulse of the heart, in the soft unfolding of thought. The mystic learns to feel it beneath speech, the sacred hum that never ceases. When he rests in silence, he realizes that he has never stopped hearing. He has only stopped noticing. The world is not silent. It is overflowing with sound, too subtle for noise. The wind moving through leaves, the flame trembling in still air, the ocean returning to its shore. All are instruments of this divine orchestra. Yet even these are echoes. The true melody is within. The seeker who quiets his senses hears creation's inner voice, singing the name of its creator. Every word spoken by man is a shadow of that original tone. We speak because we are echoes, trying to remember the first word that spoke us into being. Ibn Arabi said that God's speech is not like ours. It does not require letters or breath. His word is existence itself. And existence is music shaped into form. To live, then, is to participate in that song. When the heart awakens, it becomes an instrument of remembrance. The pulse of life begins to sync with the rhythm of the unseen. Thoughts soften into melody. Emotions harmonize into awareness. The seeker begins to hear not only through the ear, but through the entire being. Even silence starts to sound alive, filled with the vibration of divine meaning. This hidden music is woven through every layer of creation. It connects stars to atoms, night to dawn, longing to fulfillment. It is the language by which the real speaks to itself through manifestation. The mystic perceives this unity, not as theory, but as direct experience. The feeling that every sound, every movement, every breath is part of one vast remembrance. To hear this music is to remember your place within it. You are not a listener standing apart. You are a note in the same eternal chord. When you act with awareness, you play your part in harmony. When you act in forgetfulness, dissonance appears not as punishment, but as invitation to retune. Life becomes a school of rhythm, each moment a chance to return to balance. The prophets and saints lived attuned to this secret melody. Their hearts resonated so clearly with the divine tone that their words carried light. They spoke little, but what they said echoed through centuries. Their silence was not emptiness. It was music without sound. Through them, the unspoken word found expression in human form. The hidden music of the unspoken word cannot be taught. It must be heard through surrender. The mind, accustomed to analysis, cannot grasp it. Only the heart, softened by love, can perceive it directly. When you stop seeking to control what you hear, the music reveals itself. It has always been playing. Your listening completes it. Every prayer, every sigh, every cry of the heart is part of this symphony. Even pain has its own tone, a low, trembling note that enriches the harmony of joy. The wise do not resist sorrow. They listen to its music and discover that it, too, praises the beloved. In the language of the real, nothing is off-key. The mystic understands that words are instruments for silence. Their purpose is to lead the listener back to the music beneath them. When the seeker learns to hear that hidden rhythm, speech becomes secondary. Even a single breath carries more meaning than 1,000 sentences. The deepest truths are always sung, never said. In this divine orchestra, every being plays its part without knowing. The sun rises, the rain falls, the rivers flow, all obey the score, written into their essence. Humanity alone was given the gift of hearing, yet most cover their ears with noise. To awaken is to become conscious of the melody already guiding you. Awareness is participation. The unspoken word does not demand performance. It invites harmony. To live according to its rhythm is to align will with truth. Each action becomes a note placed exactly where it belongs. The heart, once restless, begins to move effortlessly with the flow of existence. The music carries you, even when you think you are still. Sometimes, in deep silence, the seeker hears it clearly, a tone beyond tones, neither high nor low, neither near nor far. It fills him with awe and tenderness, for it is both personal and infinite. He realizes that he is listening not to sound, but to the awareness of being itself, the first vibration of God's longing to be known. When the hidden music touches you, words lose their importance. You begin to see that communication was never about speech, but resonance. Two hearts, aligned in truth, can share entire universes without a single syllable. This is why silence among the awakened feels full. Their presence sings where their voices rest. The music of the unspoken word also teaches humility. No one owns the melody. All are part of it. The mystic does not claim to have found it. He allows it to move through him. His life becomes an instrument of service, tuned, transparent, responsive. Through him, the melody flows uninterrupted, blessing everything it touches. To live by this awareness is to hear God everywhere. In laughter, in wind, in footsteps, in stillness, all sound becomes sacred. The ordinary hum of life turns into a hymn. Every interaction becomes a duet between the soul and its source. Even silence becomes a companion, not emptiness, but presence vibrating with love. And when the seeker finally surrenders completely, the distinction between music and silence fades. There is no longer hearing or heard, only harmony. The unspoken word speaks through all that is. The heart becomes both the instrument and the listener, both the vibration and the stillness beneath it. This is the mystery Ibn Arabi unveiled, that existence itself is the song of the divine remembering its own beauty. The hidden music of the unspoken word is not something to seek, but something to remember. It was there before your first breath and will echo after your last. To hear it is to awaken to the truth that all of life is one eternal praise. The universe hums softly in its rhythm, and when your heart joins that soundless hymn, you realize that silence was never silent. It was God, singing through everything that ever was. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the space where the divine reveals himself without interruption. Before the world came into being, there was this silence, complete, radiant, and awake. Ibn Arabi said that the divine needed no language to manifest. Silence itself was his first expression. In that quiet expanse, the Eternal gazed upon himself, and creation was born as reflection. When silence deepens, it becomes a mirror so clear that God sees himself within it. This silence does not belong to the outer world. It breathes within the heart that has emptied itself of noise. The one who enters this inner sanctuary finds that words fade like mist, and only awareness remains. It is in this purity that the reflection appears not as an image, but as presence. The silence becomes transparent, and through it, the real looks back at himself. The mystic does not create silence. He uncovers it. Beneath the layers of thought and emotion lies a stillness untouched by time. It does not demand effort to reach it. It requires surrender. When the seeker stops shaping silence with expectation, the mirror clears. Then, the light of the unseen shines within him, as effortlessly as dawn touches water. In this sacred stillness, the soul becomes luminous. Every breath feels deliberate, every thought softened by grace. The heart reflects truth as the moon reflects sunlight, not producing light, but revealing it. Ibn Arabi wrote that the purified heart is the place where the divine contemplates his own beauty. Thus, silence is not emptiness. It is intimacy between the Creator and his reflection. The mirror of silence is flawless because it has no will of its own. It does not distort what it shows. It neither judges nor possesses. It simply allows. The more the heart rests in that state, the more clearly it reflects the divine face. This is the secret of surrender, not to control perception, but to become transparent enough to let truth reveal itself. When silence matures, it begins to radiate meaning. Without sound, it teaches. Without words, it answers. The seeker who listens deeply to it begins to hear guidance that does not arrive through thought but through knowing. It is the whisper of the beloved beyond language, speaking through stillness, shaping awareness into understanding. In the mirror of silence, even opposites dissolve. There is no inside or outside, no mine or yours. Everything seen is seen as one seamless reflection. The mystic gazes upon the world and perceives only unity shimmering beneath form. The sky, the dust, the breath, all become aspects of the same infinite face. To see this is to awaken from the dream of division. Silence reveals itself in the pauses between moments. Between inhale and exhale, between thought and thought, there lies a door. Through it, the soul slips into presence, where it beholds the real directly. The longer one dwells there, the less one needs words to understand. The mirror grows wider, until even movement appears as stillness wearing form. The divine loves to be seen, and he made the heart the mirror of that vision. But a mirror clouded by desire reflects only fragments. The seeker must polish his heart with remembrance, with patience, with surrender. Every layer of ego that fades away reveals more of the beloved's image. Finally, nothing remains between them. The mirror and the light become one. When silence becomes the mirror of the divine, all creation begins to speak through it. The wind does not simply move, it recites. The earth does not merely rest, it praises. Each thing exists as a word of God, echoing within the infinite grammar of being. To the one who sees, every shadow glows with meaning, every moment shimmers with revelation. Ibn Arabi said that true silence is not muteness, but fullness, the fullness of presence overflowing its boundaries. The mystic does not withdraw from sound. He hears sound as silence extended. Even speech becomes holy when born from that quiet source. Every word uttered from such depth carries fragrance, for it arises from the breath of the real. The mirror of silence has no center, no edge. It contains the universe without being contained. The heart that abides there feels itself expanding beyond the body, beyond name. Awareness stretches outward, touching everything it beholds. In that vast recognition, the soul realizes that it was never separate from what it reflected. The mirror and the image are made of the same light. Through silence, the heart learns humility. It recognizes that it can reflect only because it does not compete with what is reflected. The ego resists stillness because stillness dissolves its borders. But when surrender comes, peace follows. The soul bows inwardly, not in defeat, but in awe, realizing that true power lies in openness, not control. In the depths of this quiet, even knowledge transforms. The seeker no longer gathers information, he absorbs revelation. Wisdom arises spontaneously, not through thought, but through presence. Silence teaches directly, for it is the voice of God, stripped of form. Each realization comes not as sound, but as light settling gently upon the heart. There are moments when silence becomes so dense that it vibrates. One feels it physically, a living presence pressing from all directions. It is the nearness of the real, the breath of the infinite upon creation. In that vibration, the mystic hears without ears, sees without eyes. He recognizes that silence is not absence, it is the pulse of existence itself. To rest in this state is to be reborn in awareness. The seeker ceases to chase experience and becomes experience itself. He watches thoughts appear and disappear like ripples across a pond. Yet the water beneath remains untouched. This is the station of equilibrium, where the soul mirrors the divine calm that moves galaxies without leaving its throne. In silence, even longing finds completion. The heart, which once cried for the beloved, realizes that the cry was itself an echo of God calling to himself. The seeker stops asking to be heard, for he has become the listening. The mirror no longer seeks its image. It recognizes that the image and the reflection are one endless act of love. When silence becomes the mirror of the divine, prayer no longer needs words. Every breath becomes worship, every pause remembrance. The mystic walks, eats, or rests, but all actions flow from the same unbroken awareness. The line between sacred and ordinary disappears. Life itself becomes the temple, where God beholds his own reflection. The beauty of this silence is that it never ends. Even when the world grows loud, it continues beneath all sound, steady, luminous, eternal. Those who have touched it carry its stillness everywhere. Their eyes speak peace, their presence quiets storms. Through them, the divine contemplates his own serenity made visible. And when the seeker fully dissolves into this mirror, the silence swallows even self-awareness. There is no listener, no reflection, only the shining itself. The real looks upon the real through the transparent soul. The journey ends not in speech or understanding, but in wonder. Too vast for words, the infinite stillness where God forever sees himself. Before the tongue moved, before the mind conceived a single word, there was breath, the first revelation of life. From that unseen motion, the universe unfolded. Ibn Arabi said that the divine breathed his mercy into creation, and everything that exists is still carried by that exhalation. Breath is the quiet messenger of truth, revealing what words can only attempt to describe. It speaks not in letters, but in presence. Each breath is a bridge between the visible and the invisible. It is how spirit dresses itself in matter, and how matter remembers spirit. When you inhale, you take in the whisper of the real. When you exhale, you return it as remembrance. The mystic learns that breath is not something he performs, it performs him. In its rhythm lies the entire story of creation's unfolding and return. Words divide, but breath unites. Speech creates boundaries between I and you, between before and after, but breath belongs to neither. It moves through all beings equally, without judgment or preference. To listen to it is to hear the voice of oneness. This is why silence deepened by awareness is never empty. It is filled with breathing light, the living pulse of God. The breath that reveals what words conceal does not depend on sound. It is subtle, almost invisible, yet it shapes every expression. Every prayer, every cry, every song begins as a breath moving through the unseen. The divine speaks through this motion before any language forms. To know this is to realize that even silence is an act of communication. God conversing with himself through still air. Ibn Arabi taught that the soul's breath is the shadow of the divine breath. It expands and contracts in harmony with the cosmic rhythm. When the seeker breathes consciously, he begins to feel this alignment. The same pattern that moves stars and tides moves through his lungs. In that awareness, ordinary breathing becomes sacred remembrance. In every exhale lies surrender. You release not only air but attachment, fear, and the illusion of control. Each inhalation is renewal, a quiet declaration of existence. Together, they form the sacred rhythm of life, expansion and return, creation and repose. The mystic who observes this finds his own life reflected in the breath of the universe, rising and falling in divine cadence. Words are limited by meaning, but breath carries essence. The deeper truths of the heart cannot be spoken because they precede language. They are felt in the intervals between words, in the soft pauses where breath gathers its strength. The wise listen to those pauses more than to speech. For in the unseen inhale lies revelation, and in the exhale, understanding. Breath is the first teacher of stillness. It reminds the seeker that every motion returns to calm. After each surge comes peace. After every sound, quiet. When the mind grows loud with thought, returning to the breath brings you back to the center, to the space where God breathes through you. There, awareness and serenity become one act. In the secret chambers of the heart, breath takes on another form. It becomes light, moving gently through the corridors of being. This light cleanses, heals, and illuminates. The mystic feels it as warmth, as presence, as a subtle current that connects him to all living things. Through breath, the heart learns to listen to what the world hides behind sound. Even the prophets received revelation through breath before words. The moment before a divine message was spoken was the holiest. The pause, the still inhalation filled with God's nearness. From that sacred breath came words that transformed the ages. Every scripture is born in that stillness, a translation of divine air into human sound. The breath also teaches impermanence. Each exhale reminds us that we are continuously releasing the moment that just was. Life is not held, but passed through. The seeker who resists change suffers, but the one who breathes through it flows in harmony. Breath reveals that constancy lies not in grasping, but in allowing. In the stillness of conscious breathing, time itself softens. The past dissolves, the future fades, and the present expands like the chest of the cosmos. The seeker no longer counts moments. He feels eternity pulsing within him. Breath becomes the heartbeat of God moving through form, gently erasing the illusion of separation. There is wisdom hidden in every exhalation. If you listen closely, each breath whispers, "Return." The universe breathes in to create and breathes out to gather. The same rhythm governs galaxies and hearts alike. To breathe with awareness is to align with the current of mercy that sustains all things. It is to remember that you are being lived, not living by your own power. When breath deepens, words lose their urgency. What once required explanation becomes obvious. Love, peace, and truth no longer need to be described. They are felt in the pulse of air moving through you. The mystic speaks less, not from ignorance, but from sufficiency. Breath carries what speech cannot hold. In moments of deep communion, the seeker perceives that breath itself praises. Each inhale glorifies the source, and each exhale proclaims unity. The act of breathing becomes dhikr, remembrance without effort. Even in sleep, the body continues this devotion, the soul's prayer carried on the wind of existence. The breath that reveals what words conceal is also a mirror. It reflects the state of the heart. When you are anxious, it trembles. When you are clear, it flows smoothly. The mystic watches it not to control it, but to understand himself. Breath does not lie. It exposes every shadow, every veil that hides awareness from truth. Through breath, the divine reminds creation of his nearness. Each inhalation is intimacy. Each exhalation, release. Between them lies the sacred pause, the moment of awareness where the soul touches eternity. In that instant, the seeker feels both human and infinite, both breath and the one who breathes. When you become aware of this secret, breath ceases to be a mechanical act. It becomes a living connection, a conversation with the unseen. Every inhalation says, "I receive," and every exhalation replies, "I return." The seeker who breathes in this way walks through life like a flute through which the wind of God plays its song. The breath also teaches compassion. As you breathe, you share the same air with all beings, saints, sinners, and stars alike. There is no division in what sustains life. Realizing this dissolves judgment and awakens empathy. The same divine breath that animates you animates all. To breathe consciously is to acknowledge universal kinship, and when the final breath comes, it is not an ending, but a return. The last exhale joins the first, completing the circle of existence. The soul releases the body like a sigh and flows back into the silence from which it came. In that moment, the mystery of all breath is revealed. Every inhalation was a gift, every exhalation a homecoming, and the silence between them, the face of God. Between one heartbeat and the next, there is a silence alive with meaning. It is here that the light between moments whispers its truth. Time, as we know it, pauses long enough for eternity to breathe through the cracks. Ibn Arabi said that creation is renewed with every divine glance. Existence flickers in and out of being so quickly that only those who awaken to the stillness between instants can perceive the light that joins them. This is the place where hearing becomes seeing and seeing becomes knowing. The light between moments is not bound by the sun or flame. It does not illuminate the eyes, but the soul. It is the radiance of awareness itself, the subtle glow of the real reflecting through perception. To hear it is not to receive sound but revelation, a resonance without vibration, a tone without pitch. It is the remembrance of the soul before sound existed, the echo of God's breath moving through silence. Every instant hides an opening to this light. Yet the ordinary mind rushes too quickly from one thought to another to notice the space between them. The mystic learns to dwell in that space, to listen where nothing appears to speak. There he finds that silence hums and darkness shines. What seems empty is full of divine presence. The pause becomes a door, and awareness becomes the key. When you listen deeply enough, the world begins to reveal its hidden rhythm. Every falling leaf, every flicker of wind, every drop of rain carries a subtle harmony. The senses can only touch the surface of it, but the heart can hear it directly. The light between moments is that harmony made visible, the secret thread connecting all motion to stillness, all becoming to being. The prophets and saints heard this light in their solitude. In the spaces between revelation and speech, they felt the warmth of a reality too vast for words. It was not a sound in the ear, but a recognition in the soul. The realization that God speaks constantly, not through language, but through existence itself. They lived in tune with that luminous silence, walking as reflections of its music. Ibn Arabi wrote that every atom is recreated at each divine command of be. Between those commands lies the pause where creation listens. To hear the light between moments is to enter that pause consciously. It is to witness creation's heartbeat, the rhythm by which the universe sustains itself. The mystic who abides there realizes that nothing continues. From one moment to the next, everything dies and is reborn through the gaze of the real. This hearing is not done with the ears, but with the awareness that precedes them. It is perception without effort, reception without grasping. When the seeker stops trying to interpret and begins to rest in presence, the light reveals itself. It comes not as vision but as understanding, a sudden recognition that everything you experience is the divine conversing with itself through you. To hear light is to realize that sound and sight are but expressions of the same essence. Light speaks in patterns, and sound paints with vibration. The soul perceives them as one language, the language of being. When the heart awakens, even the smallest silence feels musical, and even the faintest glimmer feels articulate. The world becomes scripture, written in brilliance and hush. In the light between moments, duality dissolves. There is no longer day and night, speech and silence, presence and absence. There is only awareness, gazing upon itself, radiant and calm. The seeker who touches this realm no longer seeks signs, he becomes the sign. His heart mirrors the eternal rhythm, and wherever he looks, he sees the same light listening back. The ordinary man measures time in seconds and hours. The mystic measures it in breaths of awareness. Between one breath and another, a universe is created and dissolved. If you become still enough to perceive this, you will feel the world pulsing within you, the rhythm of God's imagination, weaving form from formlessness. This is the secret pulse Ibn Arabi called the perpetual creation. The light between moments does not demand faith, it demands stillness. To experience it, you must become quiet enough to notice what was never hidden. It is not far or rare. It is closer than thought, closer than sound, closer than the next inhale. It waits in the pause before action, in the hush after prayer, in the gap between words when the heart listens instead of the mind. The seeker who dwells here learns that true hearing is surrender. You do not chase revelation, you allow it. When all effort ceases, awareness expands naturally, and you begin to perceive the texture of light itself. It moves not in waves but in awareness, flowing through the soul like recognition through memory. The one who hears it finds peace that does not fade, for it was never gained, only uncovered. In every moment, the light calls to the heart, asterisk, be still, and I will show you what lies beyond. Asterisk. The noise of the world is the veil that hides this whisper, yet even within chaos, the light speaks softly. The wise learn to listen through the noise, to feel the harmony, even in discord. They see that the universe never stops singing. It only changes its language. This hearing opens a new way of seeing. The mystic no longer observes the world as separate. He feels its sound moving through him. The breeze becomes a voice, the stars a choir, the silence a vast resonance of unity. Every instant hums with awareness. The light between moments is the proof that existence itself is remembrance, to God remembering himself endlessly through his creation. The more deeply you listen, the more the boundaries of self begin to blur. The listener and the heard merge into one awareness. The echo becomes indistinguishable from the source. This is the secret of union. When you hear without ears and see without eyes, you realize that all perception is divine reflection, the real, witnessing the real. In such hearing, even darkness glows. The unseen reveals itself not as absence but as depth, the womb of all revelation. The mystic who abides here learns to love silence as he once loved sound. He knows that every spark of perception emerges from stillness and returns to it. Light is born of quiet, and quiet is born of light. They are two names for the same truth. To hear the light between moments is to live in continual renewal. Each second becomes a birth, each pause a resurrection. The world is no longer solid, it breathes. Time bends, and eternity stands visible within it. Every instant becomes an opportunity to witness creation happening again not long ago, not later, but now, again and again, in luminous rhythm. When this awareness ripens, language becomes unnecessary. The mystic's presence itself begins to speak. His silence radiates, his gaze teaches. Others feel peace in his company without knowing why, for he lives attuned to the light that joins all moments. Through him, the divine whispers gently to the world, asterisk, I am here, between your breaths, between your thoughts, between your days. Asterisk, the light between moments cannot be contained, but it can be entered. To live in it is to live in gratitude. Every sound becomes music, every shadow a reflection of brilliance. The seeker walks through life with quiet wonder, hearing creation unfold in real time. Nothing is ordinary, because everything glows with the memory of the first light. And when the soul fully awakens to this hearing, the difference between time and eternity vanishes. The heart listens, and the universe answers. There is no more distance between the seeker and the sought, only the song of awareness echoing through silence. In that boundless hush, Ibn Arabi's truth reveals itself. Light speaks, silence listens, and both are God. Before the first voice rose toward heaven, before language learned to ask, there was a quiet beneath all sound, a stillness that carried every prayer yet to be spoken. It is not silence, as the world understands it, but the womb of communion itself. Ibn Arabi said that God hears not the words of the tongue, but the vibration of the heart, and that vibration begins in the quiet that holds all prayers together. Every plea, every sigh, every tear emerges from that timeless hush. The quiet does not belong to the one who prays. It belongs to the one who listens. It is his nearness, his infinite patience, his willingness to receive. Within it, words lose importance. The cry of the bird, the rustle of leaves, the breath of the sleeping child, all are woven into one seamless supplication. Every moment in creation participates in prayer, whether it knows it or not. True prayer does not begin when you speak. It begins when you become still. In that stillness, the heart expands beyond the body and touches the current of divine remembrance flowing through all things. Even before you form intention, your soul has already whispered its longing. The quiet gathers these whispers, shaping them into light, sending them where words cannot go. There is a depth of silence where even angels bow their wings. It is not emptiness, but fullness, dense with unspoken meaning. There, prayer does not rise, it rests. In that sacred stillness, nothing is asked, for everything is known. The seeker who enters this field discovers that what he called prayer was never about reaching God. It was about remembering that God has always been reaching him. The quiet that holds all prayers together is the same breath that moves through the universe. It vibrates in the wind, in the turning of the earth, in the pulse of stars. Each creature, by existing, participates in that collective hymn. The mystic hears it everywhere, in laughter, in grief, in the simple act of breathing. Prayer, he realizes, is not an action, but an atmosphere. When you fall silent enough, the noise of separation fades. You no longer feel yourself pleading to a distant being. You feel the beloved praying through you. Your voice becomes his, your longing, his remembrance of himself. This is the mystery Ibn Arabi unveiled, that the seeker and the sought share the same breath, and every prayer is the echo of that eternal exchange. The quiet does not demand perfection. It asks only honesty. Even broken prayers are whole within it. The tears of the sinner, the joy of the saint, the hesitation of the lost, all dissolve into one soundless harmony. Nothing is rejected, for in this quiet, all voices are purified into truth. The divine listens not to form, but to sincerity. The more one surrenders to this silence, the more prayer ceases to be effort and becomes awareness. You begin to sense that life itself is praying. The rising of the sun is praise, the falling of night remembrance, the heartbeat of every living being, a rhythm of worship. When you awaken to this, you realize there was never a moment you were not praying. In this quiet, intention transforms. You no longer ask for what you want, you allow what is already given. The ego's demands soften into the heart's acceptance. Petition turns into gratitude, and gratitude into union. The silence itself becomes the answer, wrapping the seeker in peace too deep for comprehension. The mystic rests within this stillness, as a drop rests within the ocean, no longer separate, yet fully aware. He speaks, yet each word is born from quiet understanding. His prayers are not requests, but reflections, mirrors through which the divine recognizes his own light. Through such a heart, peace flows naturally into the world. When the seeker enters this sacred hush, time dissolves, past and future vanish, leaving only presence the eternal now, where all prayers converge. In that moment, the soul hears the hidden pulse of mercy moving through everything. It realizes that prayer was never an act of distance, but an act of intimacy, the rhythm of being loved and known. The quiet also reveals that not all prayers require sound. A glance, a breath, an act of compassion, these too are sacred languages. The universe understands them fluently. In the eyes of the real, the movement of a hand can carry as much devotion as 1,000 words. Silence transforms action into worship. Ibn Arabi taught that prayer continues even in sleep. The soul never stops remembering its origin. While the body rests, the heart remains awake in that silent communion. This is why peace often follows surrender. The ego fades, but the spirit keeps speaking. In truth, we never stop praying, only awareness falters. Within this infinite quiet, all differences vanish. The prayers of every faith, every tongue, every age, merge into one vast current, returning to the source. Words and doctrines dissolve, only longing remains. The quiet holds them all, sanctifying each as a reflection of love. Even confusion becomes praise in the eyes of the beloved. The quiet that holds all prayers together also holds their answers. It does not reply in words, but in unfolding, a sudden insight, a shift in circumstance, a peace that descends without reason. To listen deeply is to recognize that answers arrive as gently as breath. They do not shout, they reveal. Sometimes the answer is silence itself. The mystic knows this is not denial but embrace. When the beloved remains silent, it is because he is listening so completely that even words would break the intimacy. In that profound listening, the seeker learns, trusts the faith that presence is greater than response. As the heart matures, it begins to hear this quiet, even amid noise. The bustling market, the sound of rain, the cries of life, all become threads woven into the same sacred fabric. Prayer ceases to be a moment and becomes a state. The quiet no longer comes and goes, it becomes the background of existence. In this awareness, you stop praying to be heard and start praying to listen. You realize that God is speaking through every heartbeat, every breath, every unfolding event. The purpose of prayer was never to inform Him, but to awaken you. The quiet is the meeting point where the listener and the speaker are one. And when you finally surrender completely to that stillness, you realize that all prayers, yours, mine, the world's, were never separate streams, but one river flowing back to its ocean. The quiet holds them, purifies them, and returns them to their source. In that moment, you understand what Ibn Arabi meant, that silence itself is the greatest prayer, for it is the space where love speaks without words, and where God listens through every soul that ever was. There comes a point in every seeker's journey where distance dissolves, where the horizon folds inward, and the soul stands trembling at the edge of the infinite. It is not a boundary, but a meeting, the point where the finite bows to its origin. Ibn Arabi called this the place of unveiling, where the veil between being and non-being becomes transparent. Here, knowledge no longer comes through words, but through awe. For what stands before the soul is not a thing, but the endlessness of the One. The edge of the infinite cannot be seen with eyes, or touched with hands. It is not found in space, but in awareness itself. It is the stillness that expands beyond comprehension, the mirror where light beholds itself. The seeker does not arrive here by movement, but by surrender, a letting go of all knowing, all claiming, all self. What remains is pure presence, wide as eternity and weightless as breath. At this edge, the soul no longer asks questions. Curiosity dissolves into reverence, and reverence into silence. The infinite does not explain, it reveals. Each revelation shatters what you thought you understood, only to open a vaster horizon. The seeker realizes that God is not far or near. He is the nearness of nearness, the awareness of being aware. When the soul first touches this boundless expanse, it feels both terror and beauty. The familiar dissolves, the self melts, and yet there is no loss, only expansion. The fear of disappearance gives way to wonder, for what vanishes is illusion. The drop realizes it was never apart from the sea. The sea was always flowing through it. This is the secret of union, hidden beneath longing. The infinite does not dwell in abstraction. It breathes within every heartbeat, hides in every atom, and shines in every shadow. The soul standing at its edge sees that creation was never a separation, but a reflection. the infinite gazing upon itself through countless forms. Every spark of being is a mirror angled toward that endless light. To touch the infinite is to realize that time is an illusion of mercy, a slow unfolding of eternity, so that the finite may learn to recognize itself. Each moment is a drop of the timeless, distilled into perception. When the seeker becomes still, he feels the pulse of that timelessness, beating quietly beneath every breath. There, past and future vanish into a single, unbroken now. Ibn Arabi said the real is an ocean whose shore is every heart that remembers him. Each soul is a tide rising toward its source. Some resist, some surrender, but all return. The difference is awareness. The one who awakens sees the current and flows willingly. The one who sleeps is carried regardless. The destination is the same reunion disguised as journey. At the edge of the infinite, thought becomes useless. The mind, accustomed to dividing, cannot measure what has no measure. Here, the intellect kneels before mystery, and the heart takes its place as the true instrument of knowing. Understanding gives way to direct perception not of form, but of essence. The soul no longer thinks about God. It feels Him as its own being. In that vastness, love reveals its true face. It is not emotion or desire, but gravity, the pull of the infinite toward itself. Love is the motion that binds creation, the secret current that draws every heart home. When the seeker feels it fully, he ceases to chase and begins to radiate. He becomes what he sought, the reflection of the divine recognizing itself in time. The edge of the infinite is not reached once. It is rediscovered in every moment of awareness. Each breath, if entered completely, brings you to that border again. Every act of presence is a doorway. The mystic lives there, perpetually not escaping the world, but seeing the infinite shimmering through it. The marketplace and the mountain become one sacred field. When the soul stands before the infinite, all names fall away. Even God becomes too small for what the heart perceives. What remains is being radiant, indivisible, alive beyond imagination. The seeker realizes he has never been apart from this, that separation was only perception. The infinite was the listener, the silence, the longing, and the one who longed. In this awareness, creation becomes transparent. The forms of the world remain, but their weight dissolves. Mountains feel like breath. Oceans feel like light. Everything moves in perfect surrender to the rhythm of the unseen. The seeker no longer seeks meaning in things he sees, that everything times is time's meaning, spoken in different dialects of the same divine language. The edge of the infinite humbles all certainty. Even wisdom must bow before its immensity. The closer the soul comes, the less it claims to know, until finally it says nothing at all. This is not ignorance, but illumination, the knowing that no concept can contain truth. To be silent here is to worship more deeply than words ever could. Sometimes, when the heart is quiet enough, the infinite brushes against it like wind through open hands. It is not seen but felt, a tenderness too vast to belong to anyone, yet intimate enough to fill a single tear. The mystic does not hold it. He allows it to pass through. Every moment of life becomes a visitation of the eternal, wearing different faces. The soul that has touched this vastness returns changed. It speaks softly, moves slowly, and carries peace as fragrance. It no longer argues, for it has seen what cannot be opposed. Its compassion deepens, for it recognizes the infinite breathing through every being. Such a soul becomes the horizon it once sought open, luminous, endless. Ibn Arabi wrote that the real reveals himself according to the heart's capacity to bear his light. The infinite does not overwhelm. It unveils gradually, like dawn approaching the horizon. The soul learns to widen its vessel through love, humility, and surrender, allowing more of that radiance to enter. Growth, then, is not ascent, but expansion, becoming vast enough to contain the sky. At this threshold, prayer changes its form. It is no longer request but reverence, no longer sound but stillness. The soul does not ask to be heard, it listens. In that listening, it feels the infinite speaking through its own awareness. The distinction between the speaker and the hearer dissolves, only the conversation remains, wordless and eternal. The infinite cannot be known through approach, for there is nowhere to go. It is discovered when you stop moving, when you rest so deeply that you feel the current of existence holding you. Then the edge disappears, and you realize you were never looking toward times the infinite. You were looking from times it. The seeker was the horizon all along, and when the final veil lifts, even this realization fades. There is no seeker, no edge, no infinite, apart from awareness itself. The ocean and the wave are the same water, remembering its motion. In that final surrender, the soul does not disappear, it becomes transparent. The infinite shines through, radiant and still, whispering without words, "You were never outside of me." Though, to touch the edge of the infinite is to awaken from the dream of boundaries. The heart no longer says, "I have found," for it knows it has always been found. Every breath, every silence, every act of love is recognized as the infinite seeing itself. The journey ends not in light or darkness, but in the soft glow of realization that what you called the edge was never the limit, but the beginning of forever. Before vibration, before air, before time began to count its rhythm, there was a sound not heard by the ear, not made by tongue, but known by the heart that remembers. Ibn Arabi spoke of it as the first act of the real, the echo of be reverberating through nothingness. From that command, all existence unfolded like music made of light. Yet beyond all melodies, beneath every silence, that original tone still resounds, the eternal sound beyond all sound. It is not a sound that begins or ends. It does not travel, for there is nowhere to go. It dwells within the fabric of being, humming through creation like the pulse of awareness itself. Every breath, every heartbeat, every trembling leaf carries its signature. It cannot be produced or imitated. It can only be remembered. Those who turn inward begin to sense it, faint at first, then vast, until all things vibrate with its presence. This sound is not heard with the ear, for the ear belongs to motion. It is perceived with the stillness of the soul, where all opposites dissolve. When you grow silent enough, you begin to notice that silence hums a vibration without source, timeless and tender. It is the whisper of the divine within the depth of existence, calling every fragment of creation back into unity. Ibn Arabi said that every being is a word spoken by God, and all words share one origin, the first breath that birthed them. Thus, the universe is a symphony of remembrance, each form and instrument tuned to the same hidden tone. The eternal sound does not compete, it harmonizes. It gathers every voice, loud or small, pure or broken, into one unending song of return. To hear this sound is to awaken from the illusion of silence. You realize that what you called stillness was never empty. It was saturated with divine speech. The wind, the stars, even the spaces between thoughts, all are expressions of that eternal resonance. The mystic does not create peace by escaping noise. He hears the peace hidden within it. When the soul becomes quiet enough, it recognizes this sound not as something foreign, but as its own essence. You were made of vibration before you took form. Your being is the echo of that first command. Every pulse in your body is a continuation of God's initial be. When you align with it, you cease to resist life. You move in rhythm with the unseen music of existence. This sound cannot be confined to any faith or name. It existed before belief, before thought, before the division of tongues. All prophets, all poets, all lovers of truth have heard it in their own language and described it according to their hearts. Yet it remains one sound, infinite, indivisible, and mercifully familiar. Hearing it is remembering home. The eternal sound does not break the silence, it fulfills it. It is the hidden melody that makes stillness possible. The heart that perceives it learns that silence and sound are not opposites, but reflections of one another. The real speaks through both, revealing himself as the harmony that holds them together. The mystic lives at that meeting point, the still sound, the speaking silence. This divine resonance cannot be captured by instruments or words. Music tries to imitate it, poetry hints toward it, but both are shadows. Yet those who create from love come closest, for love vibrates in tune with that original note. All true art, all genuine beauty, is a remembrance of the sound beyond all sound, a translation of eternity into time. To hear it is to be dissolved and reformed at once. The boundaries of self melt into the vastness that sings through everything. The listener and the song become one. The ocean no longer needs waves to reveal its depth. It hums within itself, unending. This is the station of unity, the awareness that there was never a sound outside the divine. The eternal sound does not grow louder, you grow quieter. The noise of desire, fear, and memory begins to fade, and what remains is pure vibration. It has no pitch, no tone, yet it carries every meaning that ever was. The saints said that if you listen long enough, it becomes your heartbeat, not within you, but around you, through you, as you. In every breath of the world, this sound continues. It flows through the hum of bees, through thunder, through laughter, through tears. It is present even in silence, for silence is its resting state. Nothing exists outside its reach. When you truly hear it, you realize that all of life is chanting one name, unbroken since the beginning. Asterisk who, times he, the one. This awareness transforms perception. The seeker no longer distinguishes between sacred and ordinary. Every vibration, every whisper, every pulse becomes holy. He listens not to interpret, but to remember. Even the sound of his own footsteps becomes dhikr, remembrance woven into rhythm. Life itself becomes the divine, speaking back to itself through motion. Ibn Arabi wrote that creation is renewed at each instant by the divine breath. Each moment is the echo of that breath becoming world again. The eternal sound is this renewal, the heartbeat of mercy, recreating existence. The mystic who abides in this awareness feels eternity unfolding through him with each inhale and exhale. To dwell in this sound is to live without fear of loss. For what can be lost when every end is only another vibration of the same eternal note? Death itself becomes a modulation, not a silence. The soul leaves one key and joins another, still singing, still carried by the sound that never ceases. The deeper one listens, the more the sound becomes light. Hearing and seeing merge, and perception transcends the senses. The entire cosmos glows like a single tone made visible. You realize that every particle is radiant, not because of itself, but because the eternal sound moves through it. Creation is the visible form of vibration. Those who have truly heard this inner resonance speak softly afterward. Their words carry weight, not from authority, but from alignment. They no longer seek to convince, for they have become instruments of that endless tone. Their silence communicates what speech cannot. Their presence hums with unseen harmony. The eternal sound cannot be approached through will. It comes through surrender, the softening of self, until only awareness remains. When the ego's chatter stops demanding to be heard, the real sings through the emptiness left behind. You do not hear it by reaching outward. You hear it by returning inward to the still center, where the divine hums continuously. And when the soul is fully absorbed into that sound, all opposites vanish. Silence and song, self and source, being and nothingness, blend into one infinite resonance. The mystic no longer says, "I hear," for hearing implies two. There is only the sound hearing itself, the real knowing the real. In that eternal vibration, all creation rests, and all hearts remember. The eternal sound beyond all sound is the pulse of unity, the voice of existence that never stops speaking. To hear it is to awaken from illusion, to remember the divine rhythm that sustains every atom. It is not a secret to be found, but a truth to be remembered, the first and last music, the song of Be, still echoing in the heart of all that lives. When the final echo fades and the world grows still, what remains is not silence. It is awareness itself, vibrating with the memory of the first word. Every sound you have ever heard, every breath, every whisper of the wind, was only a fragment of that endless conversation between the Creator and His reflection. The universe does not end in quiet. It continues in resonance too subtle for ears but too vast to deny. To listen deeply is to realize that existence has never stopped singing. Even your heartbeat is part of the same unbroken hymn that began before time and will continue long after it ends. You are not merely hearing this song, you are one of its notes, vibrating in harmony with the infinite pulse of being. The divine does not speak to you from afar. He speaks times as you asterisk through the very sound of your existence. Ibn Arabi taught that when the heart becomes still, it remembers its original frequency, the pure tone of unity. In that remembrance, the illusion of separation fades, and all creation becomes one vast instrument of divine remembrance. You do not need to search for the eternal sound. You need only stop long enough to hear what was never silent. So close your eyes and listen not outward, but inward. Hear the space between your breaths, the hum beneath your thoughts, the quiet radiance inside your being. That is the sound beyond all sound, the song that never began and will never cease. It is the voice of the real, calling gently through every form, whispering one eternal truth. You were born from my sound, and through you, I continue to speak.